Yeah, 1 2 1 2.
Hey yo, AC.
1 2 1 2. Mic check. Hey, can y'all hear me out there? Hey. Against all odds. 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 Against all odds.
Oh, the podcast.
Shout out to Rock on Detroit Lions, man. One pride.
All right, one pride it is. Good morning. I apologize about being late, but had a lot of stuff to do this morning. But you are in the Rise and Grind Morning Show. Appreciate you guys all joining us this morning. I'm your host, Will Rock. We'll be joined by Riley here in just a few moments. Today's schedule. Well, it's Friday, so it's the last day of the week. Doesn't mean that we won't get on and do something this weekend, but today's schedule, we're going to be talking about, I guess, the defensive line all over again. And the real question is, was Tyleik Williams a mistake or a huge mistake? And the reason why we're going to talk about that is because of some other things that have been, I guess, surfacing about Aiden Hutchinson, whether it's contract now, contract later, waiting because of injury, get him on the field, or get him done now and try to save some money. I've heard the Micah Parsons thing, kind of thrown in there. How do we save money on Aiden Hutchinson at all? And I just honestly, I feel like it doesn't even matter at this point because the contract's going to be so big. A few $1 million either way is not going to help this team. But before I get any further, we got a lot of topics today. We'll probably get to 3 as usual. And let me get Riley in here and get us kicked off this morning. Good morning, Riley.
Good morning. Happy Friday, Rocked On family. And yeah, like you said, Will, maybe we'll get to 3, maybe we'll get to 4, but I think we have an enjoyable conversation every time we fire up and do this. So I enjoy it. I'm excited to get rolling and happy to see everybody in the chat here this morning.
Yeah, one more time though. We got to hear from TA.
Oh, the podcast.
Shout out to Rock on Detroit Lions, man. One pride.
And just in case you didn't know, TA is wishing you all good morning this morning. Shout out to all the Rock on
There you go.
Detroit Lions podcasters
Love
and the
it.
audience, of course.
Love it, man. That was from Green Bay, right?
Yeah, that was at the draft. So we were, Eric and I were walking back after spending an entire day and happened to run into TA and his family and friends or whoever he was with. And had a really good conversation off camera. I think Eric recorded some of it, but a lot of good conversation off camera. At some point, I'm going to play it. And I'm kind of holding it out because I want to play it when the I Told You So's can come out. Right? It's the receipts when I say, TA is going to have a really good year and people don't think so. And I'm going to save exactly what he said until that moment. I think that'll just be gold when we can show it and prove it. Brandy's saying our volume is low. So let me make sure that we've got things turned off. Oh, mine's off. Yours is off.
Should be good. Yeah, let us know. Let me know, guys, if it's me on my end. But
No, mine is low, and I don't know why. Mine should be back and better now, but I don't know why mine was low. All right. Anyway, let's get off and running. Let me get some sheets open and figure out what we're gonna start with here.
yeah, speaking of receipts, I feel like you've accrued quite a few of these by now. And it seems like every one of these, as we kind of prepare these topics and things that we want to talk about, what's going on in the news cycle. Obviously, this is probably the slowest time, but every headline I see, every article I see, I can recall some conversation along the way that we've had here on the channel or that Will's had with Eric or Will's done on a solo show. And it just seems like there's a lot of familiar things that Brad Holmes is saying. I'm like, I've heard that before. It sounds awfully familiar. So we keep talking about these things. These headlines keep coming out. And we'll keep dissecting them and doing our best to bring you the truth, honesty, and transparency.
Yeah, I think the thing is, I try to cover things early, and then I think a lot of people kind of follow. I think there's a lot of channels that, for whatever reason, 3-4 days later will cover the same exact thing that I just went over, or writers. And I mean, I think it's good. I think it's good to not follow each other, like do it the same exact day, because I think that happens far too often. But hey, if you're not first, you're last. And I just need more eyes on it, more ears on it, so they can see where the information is really coming from. I guess that's why we have receipts, right? So
Right.
Listen, this morning, I wanted to get into a little bit of what I discussed last night. I don't know if you had a chance to pop in last night, but I went through why Jameson Williams doesn't make sense to get a contract this year. So I believe you brought it up the other day that Jeff Risdon had said that he was extraordinarily very, 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 very confident or something like that. Sounded like something, I don't know, Willy Wonka would say. And, said that J-Mo was going to get a contract like soon. Like soon meaning like this year, soon. It just doesn't seem to make any sense to me because you definitely want to get them to play through their final year of their contract, especially if you've hit, that 5th-year option and you've got it covered, you've picked it up. Why would you want to rush the issue? J-Mo's going to get paid quite a bit of money next year. And not to say that he deserves it or doesn't deserve it. I don't think he's done enough yet. He's had one good year out of 3 seasons. Has he really done enough, Riley? Do you think? I mean, put personal feelings aside. See, that's the hard thing about doing this is you have a lot of fans, a lot of audience members that are just pure fans, which I am as pure as they come. But I also separate the fan, from the media side, or the fan, from having to unfortunately be a little bit negative at times, what I call just being real. So are you able to separate your fandom and speak truth to it? Or do you think that J-Mo just deserves, a bag delivered to his doorstep no matter what?
No, listen, I'm able to separate the emotion from it. Jameson Williams is one of my favorite players. It's something as small as I know fantasy football is not a huge, thing of importance for you, Will. Not to say it's not important, but it's not something that you base your opinions off of. But that was somebody that my little sister Sky was asking me for some help. I saw Jameson on the board. I'm like, oh, take him. So every time he has a huge play, I mean, fantasy purposes, actual Detroit Lions purposes, he's just an electric player. I love the guy. But when you look at it, where you drafted him, the capital you gave up to select him, the ROI, the return on investment, you can't go pay him though as though he's had a 1,000-yard season every year he's been in the league. He's done it once. Let's see him do it again. Right now, the Lions kind of have the leverage. He's under contract. He's motivated to have a huge season. He's on their roster. And if he has a huge season, okay, well, then you can pay him. There's no need to do it right now. It's not a necessity.
I'm glad that you said ROI. And for people that aren't, that don't understand ROI, return on investment, what did you put in? What did you get out? It's that simple. How much did you invest in something? How much are you getting out of it? What did the Lions invest in Jameson Williams? I don't remember the full trade, but I want to say we swapped first-round picks, and I think we even gave up a second-round pick, if I'm not mistaken, or a third-round pick. Let me look it up here, because that's part of the investment, right? What did the Lions trade to get J-Mo, to get Jameson Williams? What did they trade up? What was the trade, involved? So the Lions trade involved.
They gave up pick 32,
Yep.
34, and 66
Jesus.
to get 12 and 46.
I forgot all about that. I forgot how many. They gave up 2 very early second-round picks.
Mm-hmm. Which the next year, right in that range, he pulled Laporta and Branch.
Yeah, and then they also gave up. Well, no, they gave up 32, 64, 66 could be a. Well, no, I guess it really can't be a second-round pick. So it's a very, very early third at the least, and then 2 very early seconds to move up to 12. So they didn't pick swap, right? They gave up 32 to move to 12, 34, 66, but they also got a second rounder back, number 46. So it was not a terrible trade. When you look at it, it wasn't terrible, but they did give up quite a bit. I'm not going to break the trade down, but that's your ROI calculation. You gave up 2 seconds and a third. You got back a first and a second. What has Jameson produced so far? And now that he's under the 5th-year option, where is it that you need to see J-Mo? You said he's done it once. He's done 1,000 yards once. Is that enough? The answer is no. What I'm more interested in seeing, Riley, is 17 games and then the postseason. That's what I'm interested in seeing. I want to see him available and making plays for an entire season. If you can do what Amon-Ra has done and stay healthy, right? As healthy as he can be. I mean, he's gotten the crap beat out of him and he still plays. Stay on the field, make some plays. Don't be a distraction to the team. Show us that your maturity is way above board, which I think it's getting there. And I don't mean that, from a negative standpoint. I think that there's the maturity within the football game. I think that there's the maturity within running your routes, learning new routes, developing your route tree. There's maturity there. You can use maturity in any sense of the word. But yes, it's also the personal maturity in making sure that he's not breaking the rules and doing stupid stuff during the football game, like humping the sideline and, getting a 15-yarder. Like, that stuff can't happen, right? Act like you've been there before. Put your nose to the grindstone. Put the work in. Help the team win. Don't be a distraction. Play an entire season. And then I think that the conversation could be had, can you invest $25 million a year for what ultimately, is a second wide receiver on this team? I think the unfortunate thing with the Detroit Lions is Jared Goff spreads that ball out quite a bit. So how do you invest in a guy that is going to be that expensive when Jared Goff is, he's throwing the ball to 10 guys in the game sometimes. So it's a tough question to answer, but I would say this: play the season, get through the season. Next offseason, you can have the conversation before that, that fifth year option hits. And then maybe you trade him. Maybe if he has a really good season, that ether is high. If Tesla has a good, season from a limited role, I think that his snap share is going to be pretty low. Then maybe you have to revert to your third round pick in 2026. Maybe you get a first round pick back for J-Mo. It's possible, right? Do we want to go up against J-Mo, Riley? What do you think about that? Are you worried about going up against a guy like J-Mo?
Well, I think you're right in the sense of the most important thing, and you hear it all the time. It's one of those cliches, right? Your best ability is availability. You need to have J-Mo be on the field for the threat and the dynamic he adds to the offense. So every time he's on the field, every time that ball is snapped, the defense has to account for him. And I think you're exactly right, Will. It's not with Jameson a statistical barometer, I don't feel like, because he's a guy that might have 2 catches for 14 yards, but be hugely important in that game. Or he'll have 3 receptions and 111 yards and a carry for 38 yards and a touchdown. I think there's that level of, let's see the consistency, be there for your teammates, which he has shown last year he's done. And that's the great thing. The pressure's off of him to prove that he can perform. That was last year. And I thought that was real. And I thought he responded well. Now, Mr. Thomas in the chat, I do got to bring this up because I want to give you a chance to respond to this particularly, Will.
Well, there's a couple of things going on in the chat, but yeah, what's Mr. Thomas saying?
Yeah, Mr. Thomas says, give me a break with the J-Mo stuff. Give him his bag. Sorry, the print's kind of small here. How many times he touches the ball, he can score. You can tag him for 2 years. That was a great trade. You're still hating on Williams. Wow, in all caps. I don't think that's what's happening.
No one's hating on Williams. And see, that's the thing you got to separate. This is a conversation that your general manager has to have with Dan Campbell and the rest of the staff. What does J-Mo have to do to earn that bag? Has he earned it? Matter of fact, I'll point to another statement in the chat that, and this is from a name that I haven't seen before. Lloyd Dockham, good morning. Welcome into the Rise and Grind Morning Show. Says, you can get burned paying for past production rather than future production or future projection, excuse me. And I think that's a very good statement. You don't pay for the past. I think you have to take a little bit of what's happened, in the snapshot of that player's, playing, so far. Like if you played 3 seasons in the league, yeah, you have to take a snapshot of that and say, okay, what have they done for us? How is that going to project into the future? But at the same time, you have to look around the team. Have you given that player enough weapons around him to play? This team is not a one man does it all kind of team. This team has been built so that not one man is responsible for the team winning. Does that make sense?
Absolutely does.
Okay. So I think that, yeah, for someone to say that we're hating, no. Yeah, I'm not Sam Flannel. I'm not a JMO hater. I'm a realist, right? When you get the raw, the real, the transparent, the truth, and the honesty here, it's not hate. It never is about hate. It's just having those conversations that other people are not willing to have without injecting. I mean, I could sit here and pound my chest, drink a bunch of booze, get drunk, fall asleep on my channel, yell and scream about edge rushers, and blame Brad Holmes and blame Aaron Glenn. That's hate. That's exactly what hate is, right? This is not hate. This is having an intelligent conversation to involve the fan base. If you feel differently, you know the number. Call in we'll open it up at 9 a.m. We'll do a hard stop by 9 a.m. and then we'll open it up for 15 minutes to take calls on JMO. To me, this is just a very simple math problem. Can the Lions do it? That's what it's all about. Can they do it? Can they afford it? Now, if you weren't in the show last night, I think I broke it down fairly cleanly to show they probably can't. And right now, the Lions are projected to have anywhere from -15 to -45 million in cap space next year between Spotrac and OTC. There is a huge difference between what they're projecting 2026 to look like. The biggest caveat is Jared Goff's contract, which blows up to $70 million next year, from 33 to 70 million. That's a huge change in perspective on what your team can do. And then I heard it the other way. Well, the cap continues to rise. Of course they can afford it. Well, not if the cap doesn't rise enough to cover the difference between Goff today and Goff next year, because it doesn't. It doesn't raise enough. And that's exactly why Brad has $48 million in cap space right now. He's going to try to roll over, my guess, my opinion, he's going to try to roll over as much as he can next season. And that is to try to limit the exposure of some of these big contracts. And you've got Aiden and JMO on the docket next year. But Riley, who else is on the docket next year? What other players are due for contracts? There's 4 or 5 more?
Yeah, you're going to have to pay Laporta soon. You're going to have to pay Gibbs soon. Brian Branch. All these players that we love.
Jack Campbell.
I mean, every one of I don't know who my favorite player is on this roster. It's hard to pick. For 10 plus years, it was Stafford. Now it's, I don't know. Brad Holmes has done such a good job at building this roster with so many talented players that personality-wise mesh well. I think that's what we're looking for out of JMO. He's got a totally different career trajectory than Amon-Ra St. Brown. So bring them together. Now, how do they mesh? And I think they've done a great job building the culture. Every one of these guys is important, but nothing good lasts forever. And there's going to be changeover at some point.
So let me ask this question, because I'm reading this in the chat right now. Sola de Gloria, I probably butchered that. I apologize. Says, do you trade Lightning? JMO and Gibbs are Lightning right now. I don't see how you trade Lightning. I think it is easier to replace Amon-Ra and Montgomery because elite speed doesn't grow on trees. That's a valuable statement. But let me throw another player in there. What about Hutch? Right? You look around the league, and Hutch hasn't done anything, in my opinion, that is like blow the doors off impressive. I think he's done some really good things. I think the way that they calculate pressures is way off. But I think that you could find another end at some point that can work together with the rest of the defense to produce the same, type of stats, if that's what you're looking for. But again, what you're asking is, can you trade JMO and not replace him? You have to keep Gibbs. I mean, he's bar none probably the second or third best running back in the league. And he's only had 50% of the snap share. Imagine what happens when that goes up to 65% or 75%. He's been underutilized, which means his legs are fresh. His body is more fresh than some of the other guys that are toting the rock 85% of the snaps a game. But to your point, could you replace Montgomery? Probably a little bit easier than it would be to replace Gibbs. I would give you that. Definitely a lot easier than to replace JMO. But to say that Amon-Ra would be easier to replace because of the elite speed, I think that Amon-Ra St. Brown has proven you don't need elite speed as a wide receiver.
Agreed.
He has been a top 3 for the last couple of seasons. Statistically, I think he's been in the top 5. Just to be, well, I'll say this: he's definitely been in the top 5 statistically. He's been in the top 3 as well. The point that I'm trying to make here is he has proven his elite route running, right? His intelligence, his football IQ is more important than speed. Being able to get separation, which Amon-Ra St. Brown somehow gets a ton of separation without running a 4.2 540. He runs like a 4.5 or 4.45. That's slow from wide receiver standards. But that's just a 40, right? We don't care about the 40. That's just a measurement to say, okay, they can run pretty quickly. But what can they do with pads on? And what can they do to, eliminate a defensive back out of the equation during a play? And Amon-Ra St. Brown has an elite ability to eliminate safeties and cornerbacks by being shifty, right? And by making the right decision. I think that's more valuable than speed will ever be. We've seen guys, Javid Best, he was fast as hell, right? Didn't amount to anything. Who was the other guy that followed him? Goodness.
In the running back room?
Yeah. There was another guy that followed him that was also pretty fast, but he didn't amount to anything. He had a lot of issues too. I guess the point that I'll just drive home here is it's not the only factor. I think that intelligence is probably the most important thing because everybody at this level has the physical gifts, whether it's, big, strong, athletic guys, big, strong, athletic and fast guys, big, strong, athletic and quick guys. I mean, there's kind of a vehicle for each one of these guys to fit in. Now that we've kind of gotten off track a little bit, let's kind of bring it back home. The conversation this morning is really, Riley, your second topic of the day. So let's go there, and then I'll bring all of this back together in a moment. So what's your second topic there? Talking about major concern about Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah, there's a quote here. Now, this is something that we've heard a lot about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is this a misnomer? Is this the facts? Is this the truth? PFF has a, quote, major concern about Hutchinson. They're calling it nightmare fuel. They typed out, look, it hurts to even type this out. Hutchinson has been on a tear as a pass rusher basically since his junior season at Michigan. Before his season-ending injury in 2024, he boasted an absurd 95 PFF pass rush grade, 38.3 pass rush win rate. Both were by far the top marks among edge defenders. All reports indicate that he is good to go for 2025, but it is worth monitoring if he can quickly return to his elite form. And here's the crux of the whole thing. The Lions have built their entire pass rush plan around Aiden Hutchinson. So the hope is that he can pick up where he left off last season. I don't even know where to start. Brad Holmes has made multiple comments on this topic.
You sure about that?
Are we really sure that they built this all around Aiden?
You sure about that?
Like, let's be honest. Did they really build this around Aiden? Okay, they brought Aiden in, and I know you're just reading, a statement, right?
A statement from them, yeah.
Now, for some reason, the link that I opened up to an NFL.com article.
Did I? Maybe I linked it to you wrong. Let me send this to you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't need it. I think that you're talking about it, but I think the point that you just made is that the Lions built this defense around Aiden. Let's break that down for a moment. Number one, okay, they took Aiden in 2022. So you could say that everything that they've done since then was to build around Aiden, right? You could say that. What I would say is, if that were the case, then why don't we have that second top tier edge rusher drafted since 2022? Because that would, in my opinion, would be building around Aiden. They brought a Lee hold on. Let me just pull up the drafts because I got to make this point clear without misstating something. Memory at 40, well, soon to be 45, is not the greatest right now. We'll blame it on the medications, not the alcohol. Blame it on the medications.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't drink anyway. So let me pull up the Detroit Lions draft history here. Because I want to make the point very clear that Aiden is not the center point of the defense, in my opinion. I think to a lot of people out there, he is, but I don't think that is the case. I think he's a large part of it. But 2021, Brad Holmes started with exactly where you would expect a brand new GM with a team that sucks, right? They're terrible coming out of 2020. Needed to start. And that was with Penei Sewell, Levi Onwuzurike, Aleem McNeil. 3 trench guys in the first draft, your first 3 picks. Unfortunately, Levi's back injury kind of screwed us a little bit, right? He wasn't able to hit the field. But seeing what Levi did last year, now you're starting to see what was in Brad's mind, right? Like, this dude's good. He's really good as long as he can stay on the field. Levi was a top 16 defensive lineman last year when he was in the game. By PFF stats and other stats, he was crushing it when he was in the game. Aleem McNeil, taken in the 3rd round after Levi, has blossomed into becoming one of the better defensive linemen in the league. However, I think Brad saw Levi being a better version of Aleem McNeil. But the point that I'm trying to make is the same point that I've been driving for years, which is edge rushers are not the key to a defense. It's the interior defensive lineman. And we know that simply because if you understand football, you know that. But we know that because Brad Holmes has told us so. We know that because the Eagles have done it. We know that because some of the better teams in the league have done it that way. They build from the interior out. Brad has not selected the same position twice in the first round for a reason. He's trying to sprinkle in an elite player here, an elite player here, an elite player here, all over the field. Not just 2 elite players in this box, because that doesn't help you. You just run to the other box, right? That's what good teams would do. Okay, so next year, he follows that up with taking Aiden, right, in the first round, backs that up with Jameson getting to the other side of the football, but then he goes right back to the interior with Josh Paschal in the 2nd round. So we've taken 3 interior defensive linemen and 1 defensive edge in the top 3 rounds in 2 years. Now, we did add James Houston in the 6th. That turned out to be a wash. The next year, in 2023, well, he sprinkled in Jahmyr Gibbs, again going offense in the 1st round, then Jack Campbell. So backing up directly what's in front of the guys that you just drafted. Your interior defensive linemen, Aleem McNeil, Josh Paschal, Levi Onwuzurike. So now you've got Jack Campbell, 3 interior defensive linemen. Had they been healthy this entire time, this defense would have been one of the best 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And then you still haven't added another defensive end other than in free agency. Okay, then you go to 24. Well, we get better on the outside. We add 2 corners right away, 1st and 2nd round. Then we go back to the interior of the offensive line. And then we go to Sione Vaki, which some thought he was a safety, like myself, and also potential offensive threat. And then he goes to Mekhi Wingo. So then he does add an edge hybrid interior guy. And then back outside. Then this year, back to the interior on the defensive line. So if you look at the last 5 drafts, he has taken an interior defensive lineman. 1, 2, 3. Well, I guess we can call Broderick Martin. 4, 5. 5 times in the first 3 rounds of the first 5 drafts. But he's only taken a defensive end 3 times. Right? And well, not even in the first 3 rounds either. He took Aiden Hutchinson once, right? That's 1 in the first 3 rounds. And we have not taken another defensive end in the top 3 rounds. Period. It's always been later. Ahmad Hassanin in the 6th and James Houston in the 6th. So if the key was building around your defensive ends or even Aiden Hutchinson, then I don't think that Brad Holmes would have invested the way he has in the draft with the players that he's brought in. So I think that this team has been built around the interior. Before I play the video, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I think it's very well said. I think if this whole defense was and the pass rush was based around one player, wouldn't it have gone to hell after Dallas last year?
Right.
It would have all crumbled. And
That's
it
a good
didn't.
point.
Why? Because he starts in the interior. Brad Holmes himself says, you know as well as anybody, if you're not good in the middle, I don't care what you have on the edges, at corner, at safety. If you're not strong in the middle, it's hard. It's a hard life. So that's why we're really happy to get Tyleek to really fortify that middle, along with DJ Reader still coming back. We're able to get Levi. And then while we're having Aleem come back, we were able to also sign Roy Lopez in free agency. So we feel really good about the middle, because if that's not right, there are some long days on defense. Straight from Brad Holmes.
Mr. Tom, hey, hold on. Yeah, Mr. Thomas, I'm glad that you're able to go get your heart meds, buddy. Can't forget those. But yeah, speaking about this whole thing, I mean, Brad has told us so many times, Riley, in so many uncertain ways too, that he's come to the mic and people ask him about the edge position. He's like, no, like not gonna do it, not gonna happen. But yet we are in June 20. Months away from free agency and draft, and we still have people talking about edge. We still have people talking about Trey Hendrickson. We still have people talking about anybody that becomes available. Okay. It's like, it gets so old. Are people not, look, I get that there's some channels out there that maybe they can't create, maybe they really can't create, their own content. They just look at all of the articles. At least, when we review articles, we try to add to it. We try to add our own spin to it, our own flair to it, or we recreate the whole idea, or we just bring stuff that we create. And we do that because I don't want to be in the same boat as everybody else, having to talk about the same crap all the time. And that's what it is. It's just crap. Brad's been doing an excellent job. Let's hear from Brad here. We reviewed this again. I don't know. Was it in the beginning of the week that we already reviewed this? And some of the local people have just started to review this yesterday. But Brad Holmes on the Greenlight podcast. And here you go.
Well, obviously, you're able to add a guy inside on the interior offensive line in the draft. But I was going to ask you about the investment in the interior defensive line, which seems to be a theme for you guys.
Yeah.
It was Tyleek Williams, right? And I'm hearing him touted as being like an Aleem McNeil Jr.
Yeah. A lot of similarities. Just the more you dive into his game, the thing about, Aleem, when he came out in 21, he was probably tilted more nose tackle, but you saw this dancing bear in him, that there was a 3 technique inside of him. And now, at this point, he's shed weight, he's got his body right, and now he is a 3 technique, where Tyleek actually is probably, when you kind of compare both of them coming out, Tyleek is probably a little bit more developed than Aleem was coming out. So, but there are very similar players, because Tyleek's got some movement skills in him. He's got quickness. He can move laterally. He can bend. He's stout versus a double team. And not only do they, like, player-wise compare very well, but, like, even personality. Like,
well, that's a good thing.
They're kind of the same, kind of just mild mannered, good kids, kind of soft-spoken, smart. Really handled their business, man. I'll never forget when we had drafted Aleem. I was like, "Hey, man, you ready to be a Lion?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure, man. It's all good."
It's pretty.
Like, man, do you really want to? But then when we gave him his contract extension last year, and when we got the deal done, I called him and I was just like, "Hey, man, congratulations, got it done." And he sounded like, "Man, I really appreciate you guys believing." I mean, like, he was, and I told him, I said, "Aleem, you sound exactly like how you sounded when we drafted you, dude."
Yeah.
And Tyleek, has very, very similar personality traits.
Well, that's great. And it's probably, Aleem probably loves knowing he's the prototype now.
Yeah.
That's pretty flattering.
Okay. I think that's enough to make us realize that number one, you heard what he said, right? He said that's a theme for you. It's a theme for you guys. Now, why would he come out and say that that's a theme for the Detroit Lions if it's not truly a theme that they go to the interior, that they address the interior before they do anything else, that the interior is the most important position, which is what Brad Holmes just said. As you know, if you don't address the inside, there's going to be long days, or, to paraphrase his quote, there's going to be a ton of long days. If the interior of your defense is not able to hold up against the run, then you're going to get run on, and then you're going to get passed on. It's that simple of an equation. You have to be able to shut down the run. And shutting down the run does not happen on the ends. It happens on the interior, right? I mean, do you agree or disagree, Riley? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree, because that's literally been spelled out. That's how the team continued to have success last year. We've never seen a team win 15 games with that many injuries on that side of the ball. If the principle is in place first, and then you plug in the players and you build it around those players, not just one player. And we know Dan Campbell well enough to know, do you think that guy's going to really build his whole one side of the ball or one element of that side of the ball's assignment on one player? It's just not happening. It's just not. There's more to life than edge rushers.
There is. Now, I'm not saying the edge rushers are not important, but I've had this conversation with NFL coaches. I've had this conversation with college coaches. I've had this conversation with Corey. I've had this conversation with just about everybody. Derek Coleman at All 22, former coach. I mean, there's been some players that have come on that we've had conversation with, and it all goes back to the same thing. The interior of the defensive line is the most important, and I think that everyone saw that for the first time in a long time when the Eagles did what they did last year. And I want to go back into the chat for just a moment. Now, remember, when I call you guys out, use your statements. I'm not calling you out like to be negative. I just think these things are good things to talk about. And let me go back. I gotta find it. Bobby May. Haven't seen that name in here before. Good morning. And if you've been in here before and I've called on you, just a bad memory day for me today. So he says, Gibb and Branch are my two guys over Hutchinson and Williams. Just my thoughts. That's a very interesting take. So you'd be willing to keep Gibbs and Branch versus Hutch and Williams. You know what? That's a savings of about $40 million, right? I think Gibbs and Branch probably $40 million. Hutch, $40 million. So it's probably a savings of about $25 million by taking those two guys over the other two guys. So that's an interesting thought. And I'm not going to say you're wrong. I honestly feel that it's a bad move to give Aiden $40 million while you're paying a quarterback $55 million. I think it's a bad move. I showed you guys last night, if you're in the show, what it takes for some of these teams to pay their players and how they're doing it. And it's not easy. Matter of fact, I go off into stats so deep sometimes that I want to throw this up there. I have to throw this up there. This is going to be a longer conversation another day. I'm going to come back to it in just a moment. It's some crazy stat numbers. But talking about this whole conversation, which was, remind us, Riley, what is the article's main headline or topic that Aiden Hutchinson's something about nightmare fuel? What does that mean?
They're calling it nightmare fuel for the Lions. That being their major concern, that if Hutchinson doesn't hit the field and pick up right where he left off, they're saying, that's going to be it for the Lions. Basically saying they haven't prepared for a rainy day, that they've put all their eggs in one basket. So they're calling it nightmare fuel if Hutchinson isn't the same player he was before he sacked Dak Prescott on the same play when he broke his leg.
So I get that, and I would say that they're wholly wrong. And we know that they're wrong because Aiden was out week 6, and the Lions won 15 games that year.
Right.
You're not gonna win that many games without depth. And the Lions were really deep in the interior, and I felt that they were deep enough on the exterior at the end position. But again, we've said this a million times. By the time you get to that 7th and 8th guy, you're not expecting anything at that point. You're just expecting to try to stop the bleeding a little bit. You know, whether it's a full-on arterial bleed and you're spraying everywhere, right, to we just need it to be a slow bleed, right? You're just going to bleed out slowly. That's what happened to the Lions last year. It was just a slow trickle of blood all season, and finally it culminated to another arterial bleed when Amik Robertson went down. That's the best analogy that I could make to the health of this team and how it affected them overall at the end of the season. You can't have multiple arteries bleeding at the same time. I mean, any of you that have been in the service, you know that. Any of you that are in, you know, the hospitals as nurses or doctors, you know that too. One artery is enough. But if you have multiple arteries bleeding at once, okay, let's think about it. You have a Lee McNeil, that's an artery. You have Aiden Hutchinson, that's an artery. Who else went down? Marcus Davenport was supposed to be a big part of last season. That's an artery. Amik Robertson, after he started filling in for Carlton Davis. Well, Carlton Davis was an artery, and then Amik was that new artery, right? Maybe a little bit of a smaller, bigger vein, I guess you would say. But
Alex forearm.
Right, but you get what I'm saying here, right? We had so many arterial bleeds where the Lions, compared to any other team, they were just bleeding from some smaller capillaries, right? The Bills were healthy all season for the most part. The Ravens were pretty much healthy all season. The Chiefs, the Eagles, pretty much healthy all season, right? They didn't lose 7-8 arteries on their defense within the first 12 weeks. The Lions did. You get these guys back and healthy, and I've said this before, for those of you that love this team, and I know you do, and those of you that doubt this team, the ones that I know doubt this team, when I see you cheering this year, I'm calling you out in a fun way. But it's that double-edged sword that you're calling your team out now, but when they start winning football games, you're going to forget about today. You're going to forget about this conversation never happened. And some of you probably say, I didn't say that. No. I was always on Brad Holmes' side. That happens every year too, by the way. Aiden Hutchinson, 7.5 sacks last year. Zadarius Smith came in and helped us out for what? The last 6, 7, 8 games of the season, 8 games of the season. He dropped 4 sacks. Now, I want to shift to Zadarius Smith for just a moment. There's a lot of people that want this guy back in the house. And I would say from a veteran perspective, in the perspective of somebody that I feel can amplify this team with his attitude and his infectious smile, yeah, I think that actually goes a long way on a football team. I do. I think that when you're upbeat and you're positive the way that Z is, it helps the other guys stay motivated. I missed the hard stop, by the way. So Z coming back, even if he did what he did last year, that's only 9 sacks. Are you saying, hold on. Are you saying that...
That's a fumble. That's a live ball.
Yep. That's a brand new $1,400 phone is what that is.
Oof.
Are you saying that did Zadarius Smith, if he would have had those 9 sacks in Detroit, that's enough to back up Aiden? What do you think? Is that enough? Because what I'm hearing, Riley, is that they're thinking that we need another guy that can produce just as much as Aiden does.
I mean, why not get 15 sacks? Why not get 18? Why not get 21?
Aiden hasn't even had 15 sacks.
Right. It's kind of like what we were talking about with JMO. This is part of what makes football so beautiful is it's hard sometimes to quantify the value of a player just by looking at the box score. Brad Holmes just said that with Lee McNeil and Tyleek Williams. He said their personalities mesh. Their styles of play happen to be, and that's not a coincidence, right? That they're very similar, but their personalities mesh. Does Zadarius fit in the locker room? Can he be, what's the word I'm looking for? Compatible with the rest of the guys? Yeah, but does it need to be an exact sack number? If you could just go to a vending machine, I want row D, item 6, give me 18 sacks. Well, then he would go buy that player. But it's just not. It's not realistic, not feasible.
That's a good analogy. you just can't. I like that. You just can't go to a vending machine and grab your guy and the exact sacks that you're going to get. I've said this before. Forget sacks. AG said the same thing. Forget sacks. They're not the most important stat line. The most important thing for a defense is that they play together, that they're unselfish, right? And that somebody gets the stat. It doesn't matter who it goes to.
Right.
But TFLs are the most important thing.
Right.
If you're only getting the quarterback drop for a loss, which is a sack, but you're not getting any TFLs, then you're getting gashed.
Yep.
If you're consistently giving up 3, 4, 5 yards to the running back, then you're not dropping them behind the line of scrimmage, that's a problem. Mm-hmm. So I'd rather see more TFLs, which means more guys are getting dropped behind the line than just sacks. So Ali McNeil had 3.5 before he was injured. Al-Quddin Muhammad, guy came out of nowhere, had 3 sacks last year. Now, had he played a whole season, went through training camp with the Lions, maybe those numbers are higher, right? DJ Reader had his best year as a defensive tackle. He only had 3 sacks, but you're not expecting these guys to have a bunch. Now, when we started to manufacture more pressure, then you started to see the linebackers get involved. Malcolm Rodriguez had 2 before he was injured. Trevor Nowaski had 2. Jack Campbell had 1.5. Alex Anzalone only had 1. He's not expected to rush the passer. Our linebackers are generally not used to rush the passer. Now, I'm not saying that that's not going to happen this year. I think that if you're winning your one-on-ones, up front and you're able to hold the line, you can free fire, a linebacker from time to time. But if you're doing it too often, you're going to get beat over the middle. Miles Adams joined this team and in the first game pulls down a sack. So if a guy that you just brought in can do it, imagine what these guys can do when they're with the team the entire season. This team is built in a way that a lot of people can succeed. And that's exactly what you want. You want to spread the riches around, just like Jared Goff does with the football. You want to spread that ball around and get everybody fed. 4 guys with 1,000 yards will happen again this season. Might even have 5. Who knows? But what I'm saying, get everybody involved. If everybody can't get involved, that's a problem. Then that means that your depth is not as good as your starters. You want your depth to be near as good as your starters. So when you do have an injury, they can come in and shut it down. So this whole conversation got started with Aiden Hutchinson contract, Jameson Williams contract. And I'm just going to say it. Go watch last night's show because I dialed it up and showed you everything and how just a couple more contracts this year put us in those 5th-year options for next year, put the Lions in the negative with what's already coming. Now, we have Sam Laporta, Jack Campbell, Brian Branch, and Jahmyr Gibbs yet to sign next year. This is their 3rd year in the league. Next year will be their 4th. Genuinely, you want to get those guys signed before training camp if you're going to keep them. You don't want to let them hit free agency next year. If you're planning on keeping them, you want to get them signed. One of them is probably going to get franchise tagged next year for the first time in Lions history under Brad and Dan. And I think that player is probably going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. I think that he's going to be the more expensive guy to sign. And I think that he's probably going to end up getting, and I'm not saying that they can't get something done earlier, but if you're thinking that he's not going to get Saquon Barkley type money, I think he's going to get very close. That's a lot of money to pay a running back. You could pretty much put $20 million on every one of those guys' heads. Brian Branch, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, I would say 15 is probably max. Jack Campbell, knowing what the linebackers are getting paid, I would say 10 million would probably be a great number, but he might get a little more than that. I don't know. I mean, the guys aren't making a ton more than that. I mean, some of your elite guys are. Micah Parsons is a different category of his own because he's a 3-4 defense. And I think that when you're looking at it from that perspective, you're basically paying him as a defensive end, but you're paying him as a 3-4 outside linebacker. And I think that those numbers should be less, but his value on the team is so high, he's going to get close to 40 million. I don't think he's going to get 50. Whoever was saying that the other day, I don't think he's going to get 50. Anyway, I put the phone number in the chat. I'll leave it open for another 7 minutes. If you want to call in and tell me why the Lions can and should get Jameson Williams signed to a contract this year, please do. Or what do you think is going to happen next year? Let me know. I would love to know what you guys are thinking. Riley, let me look at my sheet for a moment.
Yeah, while you're doing that too, the thought that I'm having is it's a good problem for the Lions to have, right? That they have these players that they need to pay. One of the guys that was in that Jameson Williams trade that the Vikings got was Lewis Sign. I'm not even sure if he's in the league anymore. Some of these guys wash out really quick. So these are good problems that Brad Holmes has created for himself, that Dan Campbell has created for himself by being a good GM, by being a good head coach. So these are good problems to have. And I think just a week ago, we did the 15 reasons why it's Super Bowl or bust for the Lions this year. And I think that this is a big reason why, because this is the last year that you will have this amount of talent at, frankly, discounted prices. So they've got to get it done this year.
I think it's a good point. I mean, you have a lot of these guys that are your big time playmakers. And let me throw that out there too, right? I mean, right along with that same energy is, tell me another GM that has this problem that Brad Holmes has. He has done so well in the draft. For all of you out there poo-pooing on Brad and saying that, he should have got an edge rusher this year. Well, you probably said the same thing, when we brought in Aleem McNeil and Kirby Joseph and, some of these other guys, Jack Campbell and Jahmyr Gibbs early. And, you're poo-pooing on Brad because he didn't get a defensive end in the first round. Look how valuable those players are now. Right? I mean, there was a big meltdown in 23 when we grabbed Jameson Williams, who was hurt, and you could have grabbed a top-tier edge rusher to pair with Aiden. There's a reason why he did it. There's a reason why the Browns did not take Abdul Carter when they had him in his sights, because it doesn't fiscally make sense and financially doesn't make sense, but it also doesn't make sense from the ability of being able to stack other players on your defense. You can't just have one position be really good. You need to have several positions to be really good. If we were to look at the defense as a whole, look at the problem that we have. And I think it's a good problem, but look at the problem that we have. I got to get the depth chart open.
I'm just wondering, I just posted this in the comments as well. Is anybody going to call in? I haven't been on the show live yet. I've heard other people call in when I've been listening, but I'm waiting for somebody to call in so I can just be in the moment on the other line. Somebody give us a call if you've got.
Sometimes you don't hear it though. That's the problem, is you won't hear it. So
well,
I have another way to do it, which I'm going to start doing it for members only. I'm going to drop a browser link into the members only chat.
I think that'd be great this season too. Post game shows, if we do them, get some call.
Yeah. We'll have tons of post game shows, but the thing that I'm saying is I want to have members be able to join through a browser link, because that way you'll be able to hear the conversation as opposed to taking a phone call.
Gotcha.
Okay. So next subject is going to be talking about coaching changes in 2025 for the Lions or 2026. What could happen in 2026 after this year? That's going to be one of the subjects we're going to be talking about next. And I wanted to just pull up the sack numbers again real quick.
Trace made a good comment here a moment ago as well. Let's see. It's rolling fast today. If your interior defensive line isn't very good, that causes the edges to work twice as hard.
That's a good statement. Yeah, if you want to roll with comments for a minute, for some reason I'm slow right now. I'm not able to get this open.
Yeah, Robbie 1ZZ. I think the importance here is mindset. Dan Campbell has these guys bought in. They want to win in Detroit. That mindset will help with negotiations with team-friendly deals. Yes, they'll get paid, but we'll stop resetting the market. I would love if that's the case. I don't expect players to necessarily take a discount, but yeah, if they can work something out. The thing is, all these guys are going to be, like Will said, at the top of their position market, right? Because they all have a case and they're all worthy of that, the money that they have earned.
Okay, this one is this next stat sheet that I'm going to show you guys is crazy. I just came across this the other day. I have not seen this one before, and maybe it's new, but it's called dollar per stats. And like, I haven't looked at it enough to kind of make a take either way, so we're just gonna roll through it live, and I think it's gonna be fun. But before I do that, let's hear from Brad Holmes one more time as to why he thinks, or what he thinks about the edge position. And then I'm going to bring that stat line up, and then we'll move on. Here we go.
Let's talk about the edges, because, and maybe this is a chance for you to get your Brandon Bean on. By that I mean it's tell the media that they don't know what the hell they're talking about sometimes. Where you guys are third in the league in pressure rate last year, and it's like it feels like probably every week you're fielding a question about, hey, how about another edge rusher, that sort of thing. So. Just give me the state of the edge position for you. I think obviously a lot of people want to know how Hutchinson's progressing.
Yep.
But I also thought, as a side note, and I read something this morning about Big Z possibly coming back, I thought that was one of the most impactful signings of the year on any team.
Yeah.
Talk about pulling a rabbit out of your hat. I love his game, and it showed up in Detroit. So what's it look like out on the edge?
Yeah, so Aiden looks great, man. He's been out there in OTAs. Really didn't expect anything else. You never truly know, because you don't have a crystal ball. Yeah. But just knowing how that guy's wired and how he attacks things and how in tune he is with his body, it did not surprise me. I mean, he's out there. He looks explosive. He's changing direction. I mean, he looks really good, man. And then we brought back Marcus Davenport on a one-year deal. He was playing really good football for us before he unfortunately got hurt, man. And so hopefully he gets better luck on his side. And so, and he's been out there, and I would say he looks just as good, man. Like, he has been, his body is feeling great. His body looks great, man. And he had a good summer as well in terms of the OTAs. And then, we brought Al-Qadim Muhammad back that we signed last year, who logged some good snaps for us, played good football, plays hard. He's physical. He'll set edges, man. He plays with a lot of effort. And then we were able to draft Ahmed Hassanein from Boise in the 6th round. And he's just another guy. He's got some work to do from a developmental standpoint, just like they all do. But he's not some fish out of water, just raw, don't know what he's doing out there. I mean, when you look at his production, he had the most, in terms of sacks and pressures combined the past 2 years. He had the most production out of all the edge rushers in that class. And just so happens that he plays with his hair on fire as well. So we feel good about where we're at that position. But, just going back to the interior, though, Chris, is, man, you know as well as anybody, like, man, if you're not good in the middle, I mean, I don't care what you have on the edges and that corner and say, man, if you're not good in the middle, it's hard, man. That's a hard life. And so that's why we were really happy to get Tyleek to really fortify that middle, along with DJ Reader still coming back. We're able to get Levi Onwuzurike back in free agency. And then, while we're having Aleem come back too, we were able to sign Roy Lopez in free agency.
Roy Lopez.
Yeah. So we feel really good about the middle, because if that's not right, man, it's some long days on defense, man.
One more.
Okay, last time I'm talking about this, at least until next Monday. Look, I love the fact that he's talking to Chris about this, because Chris was a defensive end, right? So when Brad is telling Chris, that if you're not solid in the middle, it's hard on the ends, right? If you don't have that safety, if you don't have that corner, it's hard on the ends. What did Brad do? Just look around the team, right? You got Aiden on the left, right? you've got whoever on the right. We won't even care about the right now. When Aleem is healthy, he's a top 10 defensive tackle. Tyreek, I think, is probably the best, if not the second best defensive tackle coming out of college this year. And I think he's going to work his way up to probably being the best overall in a couple of short years. And then you have Jack Campbell, one of the top 10 linebackers in the league last season. Top 10. Almost all of his stats were top 10 besides pass rush because he's not asked to pass rush, right? You had 1A, 1B safeties. Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph. You had Carlton Davis with it when he was healthy and playing last year, was one of the best corners in the league, probably top 10, top 15. If those numbers are correct, I think that he was top 10 or top 15. And now we have DJ Reed, who was one of the best corners in the league last season. Terrion Arnold was one of the better corners in the season last year, the last 8 games of the year. So when you've sprinkled all of these elite players around this defense, Derek Barnes started to come alive last year. Malcolm Rodriguez has always been consistent. Alex Anzalone was a pivotal piece of this defense and one of the better linebackers in the league. So my question is, was Tyreek Williams really a mistake? No, he wasn't. Was taking Tyreek over a defensive end a mistake? Nope, it sure wasn't. And you just heard it from Brad, and you seen Chris Long verifying, validating, agreeing with Brad, and he's a defensive end. And if he's agreeing with it, start to listen to some people that are smarter than me. Start to listen to some people that are smarter than you, right? Start listening to people that have been there, done it before. I'm just giving you the information, right? Some of this information is coming from those guys, and a lot of information that I bring is a lot of opinions that I bring based on fact. And this is a fact. Teams that are going to win a lot of football games have the best interior defensive lines. Unless they have the best DB room, right, and no one's able to pass on them. I think that the only way you're going to do it is you're going to do it the way that the Eagles did it, and that's what the Lions have been building since day one. That's what they've been trying to accomplish since day one. Go back and look at the last several Super Bowls. Call it 10, 15. Sacks are not what's winning the Super Bowl, right? This last year, yes, you had a lot of sacks. You had 6, but you had 3 on the interior and 3 on the outside. It was more like 3.5 and 2.5. But the interior is what led the way, winning one-on-ones. The Super Bowls before that, not won through sacks. Even in the playoffs, sacks were not the best number. The Eagles and the Chiefs and the Lions were within a few rankings of each other to end the regular season with sacks. That's not a mistake. Now, yes, if Aiden was healthy, maybe we would have had a few more sacks, but the sacks are not what won us 15 games. It just wasn't. It was the overall play of the team. Anyway, your statement on that.
Let me just ask you, Will, a quick question. Would you say Aiden Hutchinson is a top 10 player on this roster?
Say that again?
Would you say, in your opinion, Aiden Hutchinson is a top 10 player on the Detroit Lions roster?
I don't know what you mean by that. Top 10 in the league or top 10 on our team roster?
Top 10 on the Detroit Lions.
Well, for sure he is.
For sure he is.
Right?
You maybe even argue top 5.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to rank, I think the Lions, well, I'll let you finish because I don't know where you're going with this, but I'll come back to my statement. Go ahead.
My point would be, and I asked this in the chat earlier, because I know there's a lot of longtime listeners of Rocked On Detroit Lions. If you go back and listen to the Monday morning show, the day after the game in Dallas, when we lost possibly our best defensive player, shattered his leg, Will was here, and what did you say, Will? Now, keep in mind,
you're putting me on the spot to try to remember something from 9 months ago.
You said the Lions are going to be fine.
I definitely said that. Yes.
You said the Lions are going to be fine. My point is, let's not get this twisted. Let's not mix. Will is not devaluing. I'm not devaluing Aiden Hutchinson, his talent, his work ethic, who he is to the culture, who he is to this team. But it's different, right? If you were to normally you lose a top 5 player on your team, the outlook is bleak. I was devastated. We all were when Hutch broke his leg. But I remember thinking, like, that's really when things really extra clicked for me on this show, was when Will was here saying, guys, the Lions are going to be fine.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, let me hear him out. And you gave your reasons why. And then what happened?
Well, it all came true, man. We kept winning and winning and winning.
Right. So maybe I'm drawing this out too much. The point is, you're not devaluing Aiden Hutchinson. But if it's different, you didn't say, oh, season's over, because you knew what the team, how the engine worked, right?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good analogy, saying, the engine, right? Because this team is an engine, and let's just say it's a V12, right? You got 11 football players, and that 12th cylinder is Dan Campbell, okay? Or no, we'll say it's a V12, but it's that 12 cylinders, the offensive coordinator or the defensive coordinator. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the crankshaft is Dan Campbell, right? That's what turns everything. That's what keeps everything going. If you have dirty oil, what do? You get an oil change, right?
Clean.
You got to clean it out. So if you lose a very valuable piece to your team, it's just like having to get an oil change. You need to clean it up. You need to figure out, one, scheme adjustments. What can we do to take place of what that player gave us? How can we stop that arterial bleed, right? Or maybe you've got an oil leak somewhere. We got to plug it up. You got to plug that hole. And that's exactly what the Lions did. Week in and week out, they figured out a way to plug that hole and then add some valuable pieces to this team week in and week out, because we kept losing players every single week. Every week we were blowing a rod somewhere. And that's a problem, right? But when you blow a camshaft like Aiden is, or you just that's huge. But it wasn't too big of a problem. It wasn't something that could be fixed. And you saw week in and week out that they were able to manufacture whatever they needed to do to win football games. It was just too much. And you heard it from, who was it? It was Allen Robinson the other day that said, at the point that the Lions were at the end of the season, you needed to have your guys healthy. And that's exactly what I was saying. Going into the game, I thought we could win the game if, against the Commanders, if AG was not going to be stupid. AG was stupid, right? To make that doubly worse, Ben Johnson was stupid in that game. So if they would have just been smart and held to what they were doing that season, because they didn't, I think that we would have had a chance to win. However, you're now playing the best of the best of the best at the end of the season. You have to have your guys. You do. At least half of them back. I think that we could have made a stronger case for us belonging in the postseason and actually having a chance to go the distance. But like Robinson said yesterday or the day before, that you needed to be healthy. And we were getting more unhealthy. The second snap of defense, Meek Robinson that just can't happen, right? That can't happen, and then you maintain, winning a lot of football games. I'm trying to find that show. I see week 4, week 6. Here we go.
Oh, I could easily go find it.
No, I've got it. I see the post game show.
Are
we talking the morning show or the post game show?
You know what? It was probably on both, but I was listening to, I remember it very well. This was maybe a month ago, and I was listening to the Monday morning, so the day after the game in Dallas. And you were there saying, and Trace just said it as well. And again, I'm not trying to say this as like, hey, there's a reason I like doing this show with Will. I think Will knows football maybe better than anybody I've ever spoken with, but the point is the value that you get here. It's only going to continue to add and to enhance Detroit Lions fandom. But man, because I was devastated. Man, we just lost touch. There goes the season. Except it didn't happen that way.
Right. I'll say this. It's not about so much knowing football is I think I know situations pretty well. And I look at this from, you can kind of look at the team dynamics from a business perspective like I do. That's how I really look at it. What would you do if you lost your number one salesperson? You know, and you have to replace that person. Maybe it takes 2 or 3 guys, or, you know, guys and girls to replace the production of that one player,
But
or
the
that one salesperson, right? It's across the board in any business that you're in, which football is a business. You just have to figure out how to replace that with, you know, like-minded production, and you can win. And that's exactly what the Lions did. So when you had the loss of Aiden, they figured out a way to make 2 or 3 guys responsible for cleaning up that loss. But then as you started to get more and more losses across the defense, now it turned into you have to do your job independently, and that's what we're going to trust on. So the scheme had to change a little bit. And I'm not saying it was the brightest scheme in the world, but I think it worked pretty damn good. I think that AG did a really good job up until the last final game of the season. Now, what I was going to say when you were asking, is Aiden a top 10 on this team, or is he a top 5? What I was going to add to that was, okay, rank where the Lions, rank where you believe the Lions should, just on the team, from most important to maybe least important, but none of them are not important. They're all important, if you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So from going from 1 to 5, I'm going to start with Jared Goff. He's the most important person on this team. And then from there, I think it goes to, I mean, it's hard to do this, but if I'm going to go individual players versus units, I would say as a unit, the offensive line would be the second most important. As a unit, the defensive line would be the third most important. But from a player perspective, I'm going to say after Jared Goff, that it probably would go to Aiden, and then it would go to Jahmyr Gibbs, and then it would go to Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then it would probably go to Kirby Joseph, and then Brian Branch, and then Terrian, because you need all 3 of those guys to do their job. But if you were to rank these guys from how important they are to the team, it's really hard. It's hard for me even to do it live thinking about it, because then I'm thinking, no, maybe Aiden isn't number 2. Maybe Jahmyr Gibbs is most important. Right. Because if he's not able to run the football, Jared can't pass the football.
Yep.
Well, then if Amon-Ra can't catch the football, then Gibbs can't run the football. So it's hard to do, but that's a damn good problem to be in, right? To not know where these guys belong. And I just, to put it plainly, I think that they just belong. They just all belong.
Who is the player that, if, you know, we got the news, Frank Ragnow retires, it's like a gut punch, right?
Yeah. Donkey kick, man.
Who is the player now? Who's the name that if you saw, hey, they're, you know, retiring, or they've been traded, or they, whatever the case is, right? They're hurt, whatever. I don't even like saying that one, the last one. Who is the name where you're like, no, not him
right now?
Yeah, I think for me,
Jared Goff.
Okay, for sure, Jared Goff. After Goff, Penei Sewell. Like, who's the guy? If you're like, oh, you get the Sunday morning report, he's not playing today.
I mean, Penei's huge, because he is now the best offensive lineman. I mean, he's been the best offensive lineman on that line, so he's huge, right? But I would say to protect Jared Goff's blind side, it would be Taylor Decker. But we've lived without Taylor Decker before,
right?
So honestly, I would probably have to go with Jahmyr Gibbs as my second most important.
Right. You know what? On that note, you said the same thing when Montgomery went down last year. They're going to be fine. And then Gibbs goes and scores 4 touchdowns against Minnesota in the last game of the season, with the division on the line, with the number 1 seed on the line, with a home playoff game on the line. Man, 4 touchdowns. Again, that doesn't devalue David Montgomery, but if you're starting to look at Gibbs, what he's about to get paid, we're probably embarking on the last year or 2 maybe of Montgomery in Detroit. We've talked about that. Will Carter made a great comment. Football is a game of strategy, matchups, players, health, conditions, coaching. There's no magic one position that will ever make or break a team. That's just a simple fact, and well said from our guy, Will Carter.
I like it, man. I like it. So now I want to show you guys this sheet, and then we're going to get into a few more things for the last half hour or so of the show. So check this out. I came across this.
Let's talk about the
Oh,
edges
I'm
because
sorry, we've already
maybe
came
this is a
across
chance
that.
for you
Hold
to
on.
get your Brandon Bean.
There you go. Let me get this logo out of the way. I'll just throw it down here. So take a look at this. Now, I really can't blow it up any better. I hope that you can see it. I guess I could try to blow it up a little bit. There we go. Okay. This is dollars per stats. Riley, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can. Yep.
All right, dollars per stats. This is nutty. This is on OTC, by the way, over the cap. And this is in the premium edition. So if you don't have the premium, you're not going to get it. Myles Garrett. So taking a look at what he did last season, if you go to the sack line, right? You can't see my cursor for some reason, but it's about middle of the page at the top. You're paying him $2.85 million per sack. But you're paying him $1.8 million per TFLs. So either that meant that he had more TFLs than sacks, I think, without knowing the numbers. Maybe you could look up some stats for some of these guys. You know, maybe look up Max Crosby or Danielle Hunter or Myles Garrett, and kind of then I can break it down and to see why this makes sense. Danielle Hunter, he's making $35.6 million. You're paying him $1.1 million per tackle. You're paying him $1 million just to get a negative play. You're paying him $2.9 million for a sack, $2 million for a TFL. Let's go to Aiden Hutchinson right now. Oh, Trey Hendrickson. Here we go. $21 million that he was making last season. He cost him $1.2 million per sack. And that's because he had 17.5 on $21 million of salary. I think that is manageable. If you're paying $1 million a sack and you're getting 17 sacks, that's a hell of a season. But Aiden Hutchinson last year, or even if we go the year before that, had 11 sacks in 23, I think.
That sounds right.
Okay, so if he had 11 sacks and he's about to get paid, let's say $40 million, you're going to pay him $3.6 million per sack. 3.6 on his, what was his best statistical season? I don't remember how many. What's the most sacks he's had? Was it 11 or 12?
I've got it pulled up here. 12. It was 12.
Okay, so, and I know some sites, they say 11.5. So let's do that 40 million divided by 12. That's 3.3 million per sack on his best year so far. That's a ton of money, people. That's why you don't pay defensive ends this kind of money. Because if you can then go in and, okay, for instance, Miles Adams last year, he came in and got a sack in his first game, and I think we paid him $1 million on the season or less, vet minimum. So he got a sack on vet minimum. Yeah, it cost us about $1 million for that sack or whatever we paid him. I don't even know what we paid him last year. But the point that I'm trying to make is you can bring guys in that can get sacks if that's what you need, if that's what you believe in. I more care about TFLs. I'd rather see the TFLs per dollar rate be a lot lower than anything else, because TFLs that tells me that you're making bigger stops. You're having a bigger effect on the game. How about this one? Interception. So nobody got an interception really last year. Nick Bosa did. Well, because he made $34 million and he had one interception, you paid $34 million for that interception. If interceptions are the most important. I would say the last three things are not as important. I mean, fumbles are important, causing fumbles. But this sack number, this is what I wanted to point out to. Bryce Huff. Last year he made $17 million. He did not get a bunch of sacks last year. He had a bad year. $6.8 million per sack that he had. So what do you have? 3 sacks then on the season? Chase Young. A lot of people wanted Chase Young on this team. He made $17 million last year. You're paying $3 million per sack. Who else did we want on this? Not us, but others really want on this team. Joey Bosa, $12.6 million last year. You're paying him $2.5 million per sack. Travon Walker. So this is exactly why I believe it's more important to draft. You want to draft your next guy. You don't want to pull in your next guy from free agency. And here's why. Kayvon Thibodeau, or no, not Kayvon Thibodeau. Where was I? Trayvon Walker, $9.3 million last year. Only cost you $889,000 per sack. Less than $1 million. Which means he had what? 10 sacks on the season? That's a pretty good year. Aiden Hutchinson, $8.9 million last year. It's costing you 1.2, we'll call it, 1.2 million per sack. Now, granted, he only played in 6 games. Now, we don't know if he would have went the next 6 games without having a sack. It's possible. It's possible. We don't know if he would have ended up with 15 or 10 or 20. We have no idea. But if he would have had even his best statistical season, which is 12 sacks, we'll call it 9 million just for round numbers, divided by 12, would have cost you $750K per sack. So Aiden Hutchinson's value right now on a rookie deal, his value to sack dollars is incredible, along with a few other guys. This is why you draft and develop. You don't buy free agency. You draft. Now, when you draft and you draft well, you might end up giving a guy a second contract. But I think that this kind of makes the point again, why it is so important to draft well, develop well, retain your guys, and then draft again. Because you need to offset that big contract with another first-round pick if that first-round pick turns out to be a really good defensive end. That's the other side of that coin. What happens if they don't work out? So think in terms right now of Ahmed Hassanin, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What if Ahmed Hassanin has 3 or 4 sacks this year? I think that there's going to be a faction of this fan base that says he's not any good. And you know what I'm going to say? How much is he making this year? Right? How much is he making? What is Ahmed Hassanin's contract?
No small amount of money, but
it's $4.4 million for 4 years. So he's basically making 1.1 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So if he has 3 sacks, that's $333,000 a sack. That's damn good. And I think that this is what you look at when you're trying to equate how good this player is based on how much they're getting paid. Right? I think that it is all relative. Riley, are you comfortable paying $3 million a sack?
I would like to get it for less, for sure.
Right. So at $40 million, how many sacks do you need in a season? Because you know that they're not going to get 40. So you're not going to pay $1 million a sack. If you get 20, that's $2 million a sack. But what's realistic? 12.
12. Yep.
3.3 million per sack. I don't see how the numbers work.
Mm-hmm.
I would much rather spend a high draft pick in my 5th or 6th season as a general manager. If I am going to extend Aiden, then I would rather draft next year. And that is where I think, like I've always said, when Aiden's contract gets done, if it gets done before the draft, the Lions will draft another DE early. And that is only if they don't have another DE on the roster that is playing extremely well. If Ahmed Hassanin lights it up, right, then he's your guy. You don't need to do anything else. You might end up drafting because you're going to lose some players. And next year, the Lions had, what was the number that I came up with last night? It was 47 or 47 guys signed next year. The most I've ever seen signed by an NFL team leading into free agency. So that means the Lions are probably not going to grab anyone in free agency. Maybe a player or two. Maybe. But they just need to draft and they're done.
Yep. Even that's not a guarantee. There's not a ton of room on the roster. So you had asked about Crosby's stats. You know how many sacks he had last year? 7.5. Now he played 12 games.
Yeah, he missed the last 5 games of the year, I think.
He did. Yep. Danielle Hunter played all 17 games. 12 sacks. 17 tackles for loss.
Hold on. Let me pull that sheet back up. So you were talking about Daniil Hunter?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so his TFL numbers were
Last season, he
Yeah.
had 17.
that's pretty solid. So 35.6 is what he made.
He's damn good.
And we're going to divide that by 17, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
that jives. That's 2.094 million. So you're paying $2 million on a TFL. Now, again, this goes. I know this is high level stuff, right? That nobody really talks about. No one gets this granular into the stats. That's where I want my money invested. If I had an option, if these were all stocks, I can either pick tackles, negative plays, sacks, or TFLs, interceptions, fumbles, and passes defensed. If you look at it, let me pull it back up. If you're to look at it from a stock perspective, where's your worst investment on this sheet, Riley? If you're just look at Myles Garrett straight across, where's your worst investment?
Let me see. It's a little small on my screen.
That's what she said. That's a personal problem, buddy. You could probably check out forhims.com. They might be able to help you out. No, I'm just kidding.
It's sponsored, yeah.
If you go all the way across, it's passes defensed. He's making $40 million. He had one pass defensed. It cost you $40 million to get that pass defensed. That tells me that he's not getting his hands up enough, right?
Mm-hmm. So take the names off of it, right? That's what you're saying. Like if it were stocks, just say player A, player B, or however you do it, right? Remove the name. Just look at the numbers. Becomes a lot easier to kind of do it without the emotion.
Exactly. So you know what? I probably should have done that. I probably should have just cut off the left side of the screen and only had age, games played, forward, and just looked at the numbers. So if you were to pick stocks, right, and you're looking at, okay, well, I'm not going to invest in passes defense because that's a ton of money for little production. Fumbles, same thing. Interception, same thing. I'm not investing in those stocks at all. Those are those extremely high risk stocks, right? And then you look at sacks and TFLs. Essentially, that's what a lot of people think defensive ends are supposed to do. In my opinion, it's tackles. I think it's tackles and TFLs. That's what your defensive end needs to do. They need to protect the end, protect that gap over there so that they don't allow any big gash plays. They stop the quarterback, and they drop these dudes behind the line of scrimmage. That is their job. Stay home, protect, fire, drop the guys behind the line of scrimmage. I would rather see Aiden have 8 sacks next year and 30 TFLs. Give that to me, and I guarantee you that Aiden would be on a different level. That would be a much different level of play. And I think that it would lend to a much better performance for the defense overall. Are we on the same page?
Absolutely. Yeah. That when you just said that, I thought, well, damn, if that happens, you could, I'm like, man, maybe they could win 50 games again next year.
And I think they could. And I think that we could probably take these stats and break them down a little bit further into each game. And, you know, the games that we won and won by a lot, and how did the defense perform if the offense wasn't scoring? What was the defense doing? So immediately I'm thinking, let's go look at the Titans game. And what happened in the Titans game? Because we slaughtered them, 46-6?
Yeah.
Let's go look at the Cowboys game. What were we doing in the Cowboys game? Because we slaughtered them until we let them, I think, score once at towards the end or whatever. But the point that I'm trying to make here, people, and I hope that you understand what I'm trying to say, is TFLs will always be the most important stat to me, and sacks. And the reason why I say that is because if you get a sack on the first down, and now it's not 1st and 10, but it's, let's say, 1st and 17, or 2nd and 17, excuse me. Well, you now have 3 more plays, depending on where you are on the field. You have 2 plays at least to get a first down. Depending on how good your team is or how, inefficient you are on defense, some teams can come back and they can get that first down. If you're on the 40-yard line and it's 2nd and 17, probably going to go for it 3 times, right? At least that's the way that the NFL is now migrated, because Dan Campbell has kind of shoved it down their throat that now everybody is going for it on 4th down, depending on where you are in the field. So if it's then 4th and 2, well, now you've moved the ball all the way up to the 25-yard line. So it's either kick the field goal or go for it. Depends on situational defense, right? Where are you in the football game? You know, how much time's left on the clock? What's the score? Blah, 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 blah. But if you could get another TFL right there and you knock that running back that is trying to get those 2 yards, that TFL was way more important than that sack was on first down. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. It's the offensive equivalent of, man, we put up 500 yards. Yeah, but how many points did you score? Well, you know, we stalled a few times there in the red zone. Dude, field goals are okay, but, you know, you'll take them just like you'll take the sacks, right? But you need to get touchdown.
Yeah.
You need to get tackles for loss. You need to get drive-killing plays. And sacks are obviously that, but that's not, you know, I could very simply just go look and say how many who won the last 5 Super Bowls. Did any of those teams finish first in the league in sacks?
The Super Bowl? No.
Yeah, like the 5. So the Eagles, did they lead the league in sacks?
No, they were literally like 4 spots better than the Lions.
Yeah. Did the Chiefs lead the league in sacks the year before?
They were like 2 spots better than the Lions. You know, we were all right in the same boat.
Yeah. So the stats are
like I think we had 37 sacks, and I think the Eagles had 41. Were those 4 sacks the difference of making it to the Super Bowl? No, because the regular season is the regular season. We were the 1 seed.
Mm-hmm.
We won the 1 seed with having less sack numbers than both Super Bowl teams.
Yeah, I don't
make it make sense.
Yeah, I try to not in the past, but I would have loved to see a 80% healthy Lions team play the Eagles.
Hey, I missed a super chat. I just seen it on my screen. I apologize. Let me. Chemo in crypto. I love it. Hope you're doing well. Says happy Friday. Let's effing go Lions. Well, appreciate you, Chemo in crypto. Thank you for joining the Rise and Grind morning show this morning. Appreciate the $4.99 donation. And let me get back to what Kerry Simchick just said. Said Hutch is a high motor athlete. There's no doubt in my mind that he'll produce. When was the last time you saw an injured player try to get back that fast? I guess it depends on what you mean by get back that fast. I think that all of us now understand he was never going to make it back for the Super Bowl because he was just cleared, you know, a few weeks ago, and he was in no condition to be able to play. It was a pretty gruesome injury. I think that, you know, the conversation of him coming back to play in the Super Bowl was twofold. It was, one, he wanted to inject hope in the team that I'm coming back, and 2, inject hope in the fans that I'm coming back and we're going to play in the Super Bowl. I think that's exactly why those things were said. That's number 1. Number 2, quite honestly, David Montgomery, right? He did not want to get surgery. He did not want to end his season. He just rehabbed and he came back, right? He wasn't ready either in the Commanders game. He looked bad. He didn't look right. And I'm not saying he looked bad as a player. I think he's great as a football player. He didn't look all together. And then Alex Anzalone, 5 weeks, 6 weeks after a broken forearm, he's playing, in week 18. So yeah, we've seen it a few times on this team. These guys want to get back and play. And for Aiden, yeah, I think that he wanted to get back, but I don't think that there was ever a chance in him getting back for a Super Bowl. I think that it's all understood now. And I knew that from the first moment I saw him on Rich Eisen on Radio Row for, gosh, what was that? It was Radio Row. It wasn't the draft.
No, it wasn't. It was an event before then.
Gosh, what was it?
Maybe it was right around the Super Bowl when he was there and he was.
That's what it was. It was the Super Bowl.
Yeah. No, but that's the thing. You'll listen to a show here on June 20th, and I promise you, if you go back and find the show from October, whatever it was from the day after, Will, you were pretty consistent in maintaining. It's not going to happen. He's not going to come back. But the point stands from Kerry. Nobody questioned his work ethic. Nobody questioned his mental resolve, his emotional resolve, his resiliency to get back. I mean, it wasn't in the cards, but he did everything he could to make that happen, right? And that's what you love about him. And that's a big. It's easy to gravitate towards players where you're like, man, these guys lay it all on the line. That's why those guys are on this team.
Exactly, the right type of football player for the Detroit Lions. Man, yeah, great conversations today in the chat. I want you guys to call in, please. That this channel has always been about the fan, for the fan. We started out, we used to get phone calls all the time, and then I kind of got away from it because we were having a lot of issues with internet or PCs, and now I think we're good. I want to get people calling in again. The goal when you call in is just like a radio show. I don't care what topic you want to talk about. Excuse me. And I used to do this at night, where I would do a Wednesday night just fan show, and you guys would just call in, and that led the show, where you guys would call in and you would just give us the topics to kind of talk about. So whatever's on your mind, we want to talk about it. Now, you could catch me off guard, right? I may not have stats or anything to run, but we'll do our best to go through it. So I'm going to do that moving forward. Number one, I'm going to start doing a members only show. It'll be about an hour long. And that one, I would love for you guys to all call in for sure. The phone line will be open, and it's going to be the first come, first serve. When someone's on the phone, just sit and wait, because I don't have a system set up. Maybe I'll look into it this weekend where I can take multiple calls and then put people on hold. I just haven't found one yet that I like. But next week, let's shoot for Wednesdays. And let's make the show more about you guys. Between now and training camp, let's get a lot of this conversation going. There's no right or wrong question. There's no right or wrong statement. It's not me versus you. It is, let's just have a conversation and let's talk about it, because the most important thing about doing these types of shows is that it's your show and that it's your conversation. Riley, how many topics did we get to today?
Man, I think you were pretty sentient right there at the start, saying we might get to 3 of them. Robbie1ZZ asked for the phone number, and I can't see if it's normally on the screen, but if you guys don't know how to join the membership, right next to that very cool logo, lions with the red circle around it, 1934, there's a join button. Please make sure you're subscribed to the show. And then also, where is the phone number so we can?
So I'll update this graphic. Corey is the one that wanted the vertical look, so I made the vertical look, but I just haven't filled it out. Was that your phone ringing?
That had to have been yours.
Oh, yeah. So we're not going to take calls right now. If someone does call in, the show's over. But next week we'll take calls. Let me drop it in the chat one more time. Lock it into your phone. The phone number doesn't change. That's the phone number. Lock it into your phone. And then next week, Monday, I'll change the graphics so that we can have the phone number up and available. I'll also put it into a pin message just for everybody to know what it is. But just lock it into your phone. Lock it in as Rockhound, Detroit Lions. And look forward to hearing from you guys next week. Ladies, gentlemen, all of you. Kids, if you want to call in, I don't care. I mean, it's not really a kid show, but I love to hear what kids think about the Lions, man. There's nothing that lights up a kid's face more than when you talk Lions football. So, final 30 to you, and let's get out of here a couple minutes early.
Yeah, appreciate everybody. Will, you just made a comment a moment ago to the chats. It's always lively, but I feel like it was very engaged today. We can't thank you guys enough for that participation, for being here. Will says it all the time. This channel wouldn't exist without you guys, and we absolutely cannot wait to start hearing some phone calls come in. Bring your topics. Like Will said, there's no wrong question or wrong thing to want to talk about. Let's talk Lions football. That's what we love to do, and appreciate the opportunity to be part of Rockhound Detroit Lions. Hope everybody has a phenomenal weekend, and go Lions.
It's funny. I just saw Ornery U of M Dad says, no drunk calling at 2 a.m. You know what's funny about that? I will get calls all day and all night when the show ends, because people are watching it, on the video version, and they think it's still live or something, and they're calling in. And so I have conversations with fans all the time. I'll answer the phone while I'm in Meijer shopping, like, yeah, hello. And it's like, hey, yeah, Will, are we live right now? No.
Yeah.
No, but let's talk. We always have conversations. But what I've learned to do now is I know how to turn the phone off, in the settings, to where I can turn it on from a certain time and turn it off from a certain time. I got to get sleep too. It's hard to get sleep these days, but we got so much work to do. Anyway, let's let's think about this over the weekend. We've had some really good conversations about JMO, about Hutch, about contracts. The next 4 guys next year that we drafted in 2023. It's tough for the Lions to continue the success that they have with the players that they have. When you're on this show and you're listening or watching, the most important thing that you can take from my analysis is it's never about hate. It's never about disliking somebody, disliking a player. It's just about the reality of what I feel the Lions are going to be able to pull off. Now, Brad Holmes, look, this guy has been an absolute genius, not only drafting, but him and that contract team have done an excellent job. If there's one bit of hope that I have that they're going to be able to get everybody done, it's this, that all of these guys know that they're on a winner, that all of these guys know that they're playing for some winners, and that they love being in Detroit because of this coaching staff and the front office. Just like Z said the other day, I want to get back to Detroit because that front office is so great. Those people are so good, whatever he had said. And then saying how he felt like he could be a leader on this team. And I think that that's it, man. Every person gets an opportunity to show who they are and prove who they are, and they can become whatever they want to be in Detroit. They have to do the work. So it's not about hate. It's not about disliking a player. Look, I want them all to stay. There's nothing that says that I don't want Jameson back in the Honolulu Blue after this season. It's just the reality of the game that you could find another receiver to do 1,000 yards. You probably won't find another receiver to run a 4.24, but you could find another receiver to do 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. It just won't be easy to find that person, and you're going to have the right draft picks to do it. But sometimes those are the cuts that have to be made, because what I didn't finish going through this morning was what I went through last night. So if you want to see a little bit of a better breakdown, watch last night's show. It was only an hour long, so it's not that much to get through. But I put up all the sheets that I spent a lot of time finding. And I also did a contract manipulation. All I did was extend JMO and Aiden. And OTC said that we are $63 million upside down in 2026. Spotrac said that we were about 22 million upside down. Either way, that means that there's only one contract that makes sense to restructure, and that's Jared Goff. That's the only one that you can restructure, that you can pull $30 million out of and give him a check back as a signing bonus and then spread that over 5 years. That's the only way it gets done. Is Jared Goff and his agent willing to renegotiate and restructure? We're going to find out in about 365 days. So, all right, we'll see you guys back on Monday morning. Hope you all have a good weekend. Major heat wave next week. If I can't get the new air conditioning installed, I've waited this long, then I'm going to have to move studios. But it's going to be extremely hot. 110 degrees is what it's expected to be here. With this Michigan humidity, it's going to be all of 110. So take care of yourselves. If you have a loved one that needs air conditioning, please find a way to get it to them. Get them in a place where they can stay cool. We don't need any bad stories, because this is it's as real as it gets, man. Our framework, electrical grid is going to be maxed out next week during the heat wave. So take care of yourself. Start planning now, right? Get a lot of water, get a lot of ice. Start planning today. Take care of your loved ones. All right, we'll see you guys back here next week. Go and probably go Detroit Lions. You guys have a wonderful day.
The podcast.
Shout out to Rockhound Detroit Lions, man. One pride.